well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. I'm glad you're with us on the program today. Coming up on the program, we're going to be talking with Jim Wallace of the Gun Owners Action League about the attempts in Massachusetts, a couple of towns in Massachusetts, to try to ban gun stores from even opening their doors. In some cases, there aren't even any gun stores in town, but you've got towns that want to make sure that remains the case going forward. Again, we'll talk with Jim Wallace about that momentarily. However, at least want to mention, we're going to be spending more time on this topic tomorrow, but the first executive action from the Biden administration, at least the first proposed executive action from the Biden administration, released late on Friday afternoon. The Department of Justice unleashing its proposed rule dealing with homemade firearms, trying to redefine what a frame and what a receiver is under the terms of the Gun Control Act of 1968. There is a 90-day public comment period that is underway now, and you can submit your public comments. We're going to tell you how to do that at bearingarms.com, and we'll again be talking more about this on tomorrow's program. But in previous attempts by the ATF to try to redo their rules and regulations, they've been met with a flood of opposition on the part of gun owners. I expect that is going to be the case here as well. However, the Biden administration may very well choose to ignore what gun owners have to say about these new proposed rules and the danger that they could pose to our firearm freedoms. And of course, those rights are under attack right now. Really like no time in American history. I mean, from the gun bans proposed by the Biden administration, the gun control bills introduced in Congress, the executive actions undertaken by the administration, the state level attempts to go after our right to keep and bear arms. This is a priority for Democrats right now. And the fight begins when you text Join SAF to 474747. The Second Amendment Foundation is standing strong in defense of your Second Amendment rights, but they need you involved as well. So again, text Join SAF, Join SAF to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder. Now, let's turn our attention to today's main topic, the attempts in Massachusetts to ban gun stores from opening their doors. Jim Wallace with the Gun Owners Action League join us to talk about it. Take a look and a listen. Jim Wallace with the Gun Owners Action League in Massachusetts. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program today.
Hey, as always, welcome to the Second Amendment battleground state.
Man, and it is a battleground state. I mean, you've got folks who are waging war not only on gun owners, but on gun stores as well. Yeah. We've been talking about this in Newton, Mass. for a few weeks now. It looks like Wellesley, Mass. is trying to join in the fray as well. But Newton is interesting because there was a gun store that actually had rented a location. They had their sign up on the front door, and then people realized, oh, no, there's a gun store coming to town, and Jim, I mean, you got hundreds of people who are demanding that the city council do something to keep this store from opening its doors for business.
Yeah, you know, it's really sad when you read some of the things that these people are saying about the Second Amendment community, in that, you know, we supposedly bring crime to the neighborhood and children would be unsafe in the neighborhood around a firearm retailer. And there's evidence that of all this, and it's where? What are you talking about? And the only, Cam, I'm starting to call it what it is. It's bigotry. It's just flat out bigotry. They don't know us. They hate us. They don't want to know us. They don't want to know the facts. You know, I would never claim that what the Second Amendment community faces is close to what minority communities faced, forever. But they're starting to see some similarities in the way that they're treating us, in that we don't want you here, go away. We don't care what you have to say. We don't care what the truth is. We just hate you. And if that's not bigotry, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. Well, and I would argue, too, that, minority gun owners are more likely to face that type of bigotry as well. They don't like gun owners, but, if you're a black gun owner, if you are a Asian American Pacific Islander gun owner, if you're a Hispanic gun owner, you maybe get a double dose of that type of bigotry. And it's, what kills me, Jim, is you mentioned this quote. This is from CBS Boston. One resident said, "This is a densely populated community with young children and families that live around here, so we don't think it's safe to put a gun shop here." There is literally a marijuana dispensary like right next door to where this gun shop is opening up. Now, look, I'm all in favor of legalizing cannabis, but I'm also all in favor of ensuring that our right to keep and bear arms is protected as well. And it just seems odd to me that you would have parents saying, look, we have kids around here. We can have a gun shop right next to the pot shop. Yeah. I mean, if you've got a problem with one, shouldn't you have a problem with both of them?
Well, the sad thing is one is a civil right, and one, there are people that are arguing it's a civil right for cannabis, but whatever. But one is very clearly a civil right. But again, it's not in our neighborhood. And the politics of 2A has become so bad in mass that it's just rearing its ugly head for what it is. They don't want to hear the truth. And if gun retailers, farm retailers, stores attract anybody, it's the best of the best. We've been vetted so much in Massachusetts just to become a gun owner. Criminals don't go to gun shops. They don't hang around gun shops. They're going to get arrested. They're going to get charged and all kinds of things. So it's sad. Now, Newton itself, from what we're seeing, they just want to zone it, probably to 2 square feet in the back corner of the city somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Wellesley just flat out said, no, we just don't want you in our town. So Wellesley is taking a different approach. They're just saying, no, you can't be here, which I'm not sure they get past the Commerce Act on, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed in the Gun Owners Action League's a piece about this. You quote Jason Gita, who is the attorney for the Newton gun store owner, and he says it's outrageous that politicians are manipulating zoning laws for political gain. He says, I'll continue to fight for my client and other law-abiding citizens who are being subject to this kind of self-serving, unethical political show. And good for him. I mean, I hope that if this town council there in Newton tries to prevent the store from opening up, I hope that there is a legal action here. But you're right. I mean, Wellesley trying to just ban gun stores outright. There are no gun stores that are open in Wellesley right now, but they want to make sure that doesn't change in the future. I don't know if you've got any federal law out of the first Court of Appeals, but I know that, when Chicago's handgun ban was struck down back in 2010, Jim, the city of Chicago, in its revised gun control laws, tried to ban gun stores entirely. They were sued over that. They lost that fight in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, it may be sort of a paper win for the Second Amendment advocates because there still aren't any gun stores open in the city of Chicago. But the Seventh Circuit has ruled, look, you can't, as a town, just declare that gun stores can't open for business. Is there the potential for legal action here in either Newton or Wellesley, you think, going forward?
Yeah, I think there is. We're going to have to figure out or find out exactly what they're going to do. And as you know, because you've covered this stuff forever, and it's hard to explain to our members that we actually have to wait for somebody to be technically harmed or we can file a lawsuit because the court's going to say, well, who's been harmed? So no, technically nobody, even though the ability has been taken away, an individual person's ability hasn't been taken away. So we always have to go down that route. But, Massachusetts, especially around the city of Boston, has been famous for this. You may recall years ago, it's got to be 10 years ago now, that there was one gun shop left in the city proper of Boston and Jamaica Plains. And the bulk of this person's business was Boston police officers. But Mayor Menino, when he was still around, did not want a single retailer in the city. So he actually, because Massachusetts, you have to have the federal retailer and the state retailer license. And when the fellow's state retailer license came up, the mayor pulled the Swiftie and held up his license renewal on purpose so that technically he was selling guns without a state license. And then what they did was say, well, if you agree to close your shop, we won't press all these criminal charges on you. So even though the people he was selling to were predominantly police officers, so it's amazing what they will pull. And of course, we've seen what the Attorney General will pull here to get her way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Maura Healey could be a whole other topic for another day. Are you concerned at all? I mean, so you've got Newton, you've got Wellesley. Are you concerned that there are going to be other towns or cities in Massachusetts that try to do the same thing? Because you mentioned Boston doesn't have any gun stores left, although they don't have a formal prohibition on any gun stores operating within inside the city limits. But is this? Are you concerned this is going to become a trend?
Yeah, well, this is actually not this particular tactic, but we see this almost every spring because that's when you have the town meetings, the town warrants, the city ordinances, all come up for either review or petition. And one of the things that's kind of ridiculous, and I don't know how we could ever change it, but some of the smaller towns, it only takes 10 signatures to get something on the town warrant. I mean, that's a cup of coffee. And suddenly you're affecting people's civil rights. So what we've been seeing ever since, the Everytown whatever has been around is that every year they try something a little different. And even a few years, they try something different in every town they launch it in to see if they can get something that's going to stick. And they go for it. But we've been successful so far in every venture that we've had great, strong grassroots people on the ground in every community, and we've been able to fend it off. We just don't have those numbers in Wellesley and Newton. It's a done deal as far as we know. There is no debate. It's just going to happen because there's no opposition to them, and they know they're safe in their elections. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to go to the courts again. It seems like that's one of the things that the American public at some point has to get sick of, is that all of these politicians, whether elected or appointed, don't care. They're going to do what they want to do. Sue me. It's not my money. There's nothing coming out of my pocket, even if you win. I should get paid, So at some point, the American public's going to have to address that issue that, we're fighting our own money. And the people who are found guilty, they still go merrily along and collect their pension.
Yep, absolutely right. I mean, heck, we saw that last year with Governor Charlie Baker trying to shut down gun shops as non-essential businesses, and a federal judge put a stop to that ultimately and said, no, you can't do that because you're depriving people of their right to keep and bear arms. But it's not like the governor suffered any sort of financial sanctions for trying to put these gun stores out of business. Tonight at 7 p.m., there is going to be a Newton City Council Zoning and Planning Committee virtual public hearing. So maybe the few Second Amendment supporters in Newton, I hope that they turn out for that virtual meeting. I hope that they make their opinions known. But I have a feeling, Jim Wallace, we're going to be talking about this issue in the not too distant future here, and perhaps talking about a lawsuit filed against the city of Newton.
Yeah, we hope so. And, if I have my way too, it'll be a civil rights lawsuit, not just a zoning lawsuit.
There you go. Jim Wallace, Executive Director of the Gun Owners Action League in Massachusetts. Always good talking with you, sir. Thank you so much, and look forward to doing this again soon.
All right, brothers. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate Mr. Wallace joining us on the program, and we will continue watch what's going on in Massachusetts. I am a little concerned that this might turn into the antithesis of the Second Amendment sanctuary movement. We've seen now 10 states, but hundreds of counties and towns across the country that have declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. I'm afraid the equal and opposite reaction might be more towns like Newton and Wellesley, Mass, saying, oh, yeah? All right, look, we probably can't ban gun ownership outright, but we can make it as difficult as possible for you to legally buy a gun in our town. I'm sure the folks at Everytown, Moms Demand Action, Brady, Giffords, the Biden administration, I'm sure that they would love to make it much more difficult for responsible Americans to exercise their constitutionally protected rights. All right, let's turn our attention, while ignoring, by the way, criminals, which is a great segue into today's recidivist report, along with our armed citizen story. In our good deed of the day, we've been talking about Newton, Mass. Let's talk about Norton, Virginia, where the police chief shot over the weekend. He remains hospitalized. He had gone out to a shoplifting call, just a shoplifting call. And when he got there, a suspect opened fire on him. Thankfully, Chief James Lane was able to return fire and struck 35-year-old James Buckland of Pound, Virginia. He has now been charged with attempted capital murder of a police officer. The suspect, at last report, listed in critical but stable condition, Chief James Lane of Norton, Virginia, also airlifted to a local hospital, but it looks like he is going to recover from his injuries. And according to the Herald Courier newspaper, the suspect in this case has a, quote, extensive criminal history in Wise County, Virginia. He also faces charges of use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, as well as possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. Prior to his shooting, Buckland already had a hearing scheduled in Wise County Circuit Court for later this month, a week and a half from now, May 20th, where he was going to be facing a violation of probation charge. Why they waited, I don't know how many weeks, to actually haul him into court on a probation violation, I don't know. It could be that the pandemic maybe has slowed down the court system in Wise County. Wise County is a pretty rural area, so they may not meet. Court may not meet actually every day in Wise County. I know that's the case in several other counties, rural counties in Virginia. But regardless of that particular probation violation, sure sounds like Mr. Buckland had quite the extensive criminal history. Not much time behind bars to show for it. Thankfully, again, the chief of police in Norton, Virginia, looks like is going to be okay. He has worked with the police department since 1996. He has been the police chief there for a decade. Sounds like a really salt of the earth guy, former president of the local Kiwanis chapter. I'm hopeful that he will make his recovery. But man, there are a lot of questions about the suspect here and why the suspect was out in the very first place. All right, on to our armed citizen story from Harris County, Texas, where a woman who was being choked by her ex-boyfriend shot him to death, according to sheriff's deputies. This happened Saturday afternoon, around 12:15. According to ABC 13 in Houston, deputies say the 29-year-old woman called police, saying that the man was at her home picking up his belongings when he, quote, got aggressive with her and started to choke her and headbutt her. She managed to get away from the 29-year-old man, grabbed a handgun that was inside the home, and that's when she shot and killed him, according to deputies. Deputies say that there were two children inside the home as well. They were in a different room from where the shooting occurred. The kids are okay. Looks like the injury suffered by the woman not life-threatening. Deputies, again, still investigating this. We don't have a lot of information, but at the moment, this appears to be a pretty clear-cut case of self-defense. We'll follow up with any details as they emerge. Speaking of follow-ups, by the way, we've got a follow-up for you on a Good Samaritan story from last week, our good deed of the day. This was a gentleman you may remember who saw a car accident in Ocean City, Maryland, and ended up jumping off of a bridge into the waters below when a 2-year-old who was still strapped to her car seat was ejected from one of these vehicles and went over the guardrail and into the water. At the time, the Good Samaritan was anonymous. But over the weekend, he actually came forward to start to tell his story. And, I mean, it is an incredible story. Jonathan Bauer said he'd been working on his boat. He was with his daughter. He needed to run an errand. And so he said, you want to come along? And they were going to stop at a taco place. So they got done with their errand. They're driving back. And as they're driving on the Route 90 bridge, they were involved in this crash. Thankfully, neither of them were seriously injured, but Jonathan Bauer says he got out of his car to check. He got Ava out of the car as well, and he saw one of the crash victims trying to get out of the vehicle, so he went over to help, told his daughter, hey, stay where you are. As he's helping this person get out of one of these vehicles, he looked over the railing and saw a car seat floating on the water. He said it was, quote, almost picturesque. There's this little toddler floating on her back in the car seat, and then he sees the car seat start to turn with the toddler still trapped inside. So he kicked off his shoes. He said he still isn't sure why he did that, but he kicked off his shoes, told Ava to call 911, and then jumped 25 feet into the bay below. As he's talking about this and describing what had happened, his daughter said that watching her dad jump off the bridge was the scariest thing that she has experienced in her life. Her phone was at 5%, thankfully still enough to make a 911 call. Operators told her that dispatch had already been notified that there were crews already on the way. She is looking down the water. She sees her dad pop up, has the little girl. Then she yells down, "How are you going to get out?" And he said, "That's a good question." Well, there were other good Samaritans in the area. A individual with a pontoon boat arrived, was able to fish Bauer and the toddler out of the water. The girl expected to make a full recovery. 7 others in the crash, treated at hospitals and released. Jonathan Bauer's wife, Wendy, said she's not surprised that her husband did what he did, saying, quote, "If you know him, you know that this is something that he would do." Well, again, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Jonathan Bauer in Maryland, we thank you once again for your very good deed, and I'm so glad that we can put a name to that good deed there in Maryland. That is all the time we've got for you on this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company for this Monday. The good news is it's just Monday. We're just getting started on the work week. So tomorrow, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking more about the DOJ proposed rule on DIY firearms, unfinished frames and receivers, redefining what a receiver is under the Gun Control Act of 1968 and the potential for legal action against this proposed rule. So make sure you're tuning in to the next edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. In fact, we'll make it real easy for you to do so. Just subscribe to Town Hall Media on YouTube. That way you'll never miss a program. Or you can subscribe to Bearing Arms Cam and Company on Rumble. You can also do that on Amazon Podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and of course the townhall.com podcast page. Until we talk again, be well, be safe, and be free.